So I guess you have heard somewhere about why trying to find your passions is not such a good advice, and yet every day you hear from successful people talking about the importance of following your passions. And I think it's becoming quite confusing for many of us, trying to find that thing, the career or business that works best for us. So recently, I read a book titled So Good They Can't Ignore You by Cal Newport that I thought the way the author put across a systematic way of finding the work you love is quite useful. So today I want to share this with you. The way the author approached his argument in this book comes from a scientific approach. In fact, he earned his PhD from MIT and is now a professor at Georgetown University, so I guess that explains his approach in this book. But I first came across Cal Newport from a more recent book called Deep Work, but that will be a whole different topic for another day. Anyway, his general argument is that we should avoid the passion hypothesis, which we understand as, finding your passion first so that meaningful work will come later. Because the advice of following your passions can be dangerous, so instead, the author suggests that you can work systematically to achieve a more successful and satisfied career. According to a 2002 study, 84 out of 100 Canadian university students surveyed indicated that they did have passions. However, only 4 out of these 84 students identified passions with direct connections with work or education. The rest were mere hobbies such as skiing, reading, or dancing. Not only that, since the birth of the passion hypothesis in 1970, more people have followed their passions. This resulted in people switching jobs more frequently, yet job satisfaction actually declined. In 2010, only 45% of the Americans surveyed were happy with their jobs, down from 61% in 1987. Therefore, the author argues that striving for a job with a preconceived idea of passion can often lead to unhappiness and dissatisfaction. So if that's the case, how do we go about being happy with what we do? Well, a good part of it lies in experience. According to a survey of college administrative assistants, their job may be seen as boring, but their answers on the level of satisfaction actually varies. One third of it consider it as the job to pay the bills, another third consider it as a career, and the final third consider it as a calling. Apparently, the more experience the administrative assistant had, the more likely they were to enjoy the work. This is probably linked to the fact that as you become good at your work and develop a sense of efficacy and develop strong relationship with your colleagues, you will more likely become more satisfied with your work. As for the relationship on the length of experience with job satisfaction, it is linked to your level of expertise. In other words, as you become better at something, it is more likely that you will become more passionate about it. In fact, the author relates such an experience to a scientific theory called the self-determination. The theory identifies 3 basic factors required to generate intrinsic motivations, and this in turn is connected to higher levels of job satisfaction. These 3 elements are autonomy, the feeling that you have control over your day; competence, the feeling that you are good at what you do; and relatedness, the feeling that you have with other people. This means that you have to work on achieving mastery in any given field so that you can be more competent and be granted more control in your area of work. Therefore, the author argues that you don't necessarily need passion, but rather the willingness to work hard to acquire that mastery is what it takes. As for the rest of the book, the author goes into more in-depth discussion of how to attain rare and valuable skills, which he coined as career capital, in order to attain the autonomy, competence, and relatedness that we have discussed. Think about it. Why will your boss task you to be in charge of certain projects? It must be something in you that differentiates yourself, certain skills or expertise that you have that is different from your peers. So this is the basic idea of supply and demand in the employment market. If you want rare and valuable jobs, then you must have the rare and valuable skills, so that eventually you will be granted greater autonomy by giving you the extra control in the direction of the projects that you are in charge of. In short, adopt a craftsman mindset. Work on acquiring the skills and experience to become better at what you do. And finally, the author mentioned about reaching a mission-driven career, and this will give you a more meaningful work. But I will not dwell too much into this for now, as it will require time on your own to trial and error and experiment. It will require a mentality to take small but bold bets to craft a mission that will add more meaning to your work. So just to summarize, instead of trying to find a job or a business that corresponds to your passion, learn to love what you do. So a key takeaway here is that our passion is not tied to a specific field or type of work, but rather, in order for us to enjoy what we will do eventually, we need to adopt a craftsman mindset we need to acquire the career capital, the invaluable skills and experience in order to exchange for greater autonomy and control in the work that we are working on. But dangers may surface if we try to gain more control and autonomy too early without acquiring the necessary career capital. This is what the author calls control traps, such as jumping into a business or job without prior experience or knowledge in the field, which will result in a higher rate of failure. So for those of you who are trying to figure out your craft, it's okay to give yourself some time. Even now, I'm always thinking about what best next step to take, but commit to one area each time and work for a substantial period of time before evaluating again. I guess that's the most important thing that I learned from this book. Now, let's go work on our crafts.